Hey there, alchemists. Alexis Gertz from Edible Alchemy here on Crete. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about horta, which translated from Greek means wild greens, or literally translated meaning weeds. So if you're a vegetarian, you'd be called a hortophaga, which is weed eater. And we're going to be traveling from the mountainous regions down between the mountain and the ocean and down at the sea to discover what is all edible here. I've gone around with a couple experts to discover these plants and see their qualities and their properties. And in this episode, we're going to be going through some of them, not all of them, because if it was an extensive list, this episode would be way too long. You're going to have to come join me here on Crete to dig up some plants yourself, but check out this episode to see what we have found. Picking some horta. Here we have some nice radish leaves. And the way that we are taught here is not to just cut one leaf at a time, but come over here and check out how we get right down to the root and just slice right there. So you get almost the whole plant. And at first I was wondering why they would do that and not just collect the leaves, but it's actually a lot easier to clean. And they like to eat them in these bunches, more or less. And so this one you can cook. It's also easier to clean. And the soil here, luckily, is so nice and fine, this red, dark soil, that's very easy to wash off. And so far I have not had any grit or anything in my teeth eating any of these plants. So they're basically like a type of spinach. We've got a big bunch, and they just grow like crazy. Look at these guys. So we can steam them. And what they're doing often here is putting them in omelets or just on a steamed plate. We've got a nice big bunch. So it's important to clean them well. You can also say, one of the ladies told me that if you see that snails are eating them and they have holes in them, that's a good sign that we can eat them too, that they're not poisonous. Of course, these are quite recognizable. But let's check out some other plants. For example, here we have one of the radiki, one of the little dandelions. You can even see, of course, dandelion is the yellow flowers that are popping up. But often you want to get them before they flower so that they have all of the energy in the leaves. And those are nice, a little bit bitter. But if you steam them, they're a little bit less bitter. I'm using a bit more of a flexible knife. And even though there's a lot of soil here, that all washes off. These are nice. And there's so many varieties of dandelions as well. Let me quickly show you some other herbs that we have going around here, around the property, that we can steam and use for omelets. Underneath the olive trees, there's pretty much always this Lacto-Fermented, which means rabbit food, and it's kind of a desired herb for a lot of people. Follow me under here. Now it's growing really nice and big, and we recommended break off the branches so that it can grow better, kind of like the basil technique. Don't pick off individual leaves here, pick off a branch and then take the leaves off. And this one is sort of a irony nettle taste. So check out all this horta. We have radish leaves, wild chives, dandelion leaves, which are very prized. There's red ones, yellow ones, ones with milk in them. You can find sorrel on the land. And I got this book from a local forager who's pretty much showing me all around the land what we can find. And we realized that this thistle is also edible as long as you take off all of the spikes and clean it really well, and it sort of becomes this delicacy. Checking among the rocks, we can find also lots of edible plants that are growing between the rocks on the mountainside, rich in vitamins, rich in iron, and they're really great in salads or cooked as yeshnera, which is kind of among potatoes and meat. There's lots of nettle growing around, also very rich in vitamins, wild parsley, and fennel, which is definitely one of my favorites. You can cook it again or use it as salads. So once you have all of your horta, we need to organize it and we need to clean it. Cleaning it can be more or less just a monotonous task because there's a lot of soil on every plant, but it's a great task to do, and because the soil here is so fine, often it washes off after 2 or 3 rinses. What the locals are often doing is cooking the horta with a lot of water and then throwing that water away, which I thought is maybe actually losing a lot of the flavor in the horta itself and the vitamins and minerals. So we've been trying some fusion techniques to steam the horta to get it nice and soft and put some goat's cheese and sheep's cheese with it, which is really great. What they do here often is make it with an omelette, which is really nice. And I've also tried, of course, some fusion things and made some lacto-fermented radish leaves. Let's see how that turns out. And here all around the property we have this fασκόμηλου, which is the mountain Cretan Sage. You shouldn't actually have too much of it because it's very, very strong, especially for women. It's also an emmenagogue. So if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, this is not your herb, but otherwise it's very relaxing and has a very individual taste. And here is one of the types of chai de vunot, which is like a mountain tea, and it's growing all around the property. And you want to sort of boil that in water for 3 minutes so that you get all of the properties and constituents out of the plant. So This was definitely one of my favorite places for some wild camping, discovering some caves that are just here on the mountainside. And looking around the mountainside, you can find all sorts of edible plants, like our lovely chickweed, which grows almost everywhere that I know. Chickweed is one of those weeds that are a tasty salad filler, nice salad filling green and full of iron and nutrients, as well as a lot of teas growing around the area. We had thyme and oregano and even some rosemary. So that's what's growing on this particular rock. On another coast, then we found some juniper berries. There was one single juniper berry tree, and it has an incredible ethereal smell that will be added to some krauts, definitely. Down at the sea, you can find all sorts of edible succulents that have also absorbed that salty air that's in the environment, growing in poor soils but have very thick, rich leaves. So come join us here on Crete to pick your own salad, pick your own horta, and discover how the locals are also using these nutritious greens.